What's up, everybody? Big Herc getting down with another fresh out. And we have a very interesting guest with us here today. Man, this guy right here, you've probably seen his memes 1,000 times, different ones all over the place. I got on my channel today with me, Winston Montag, and he's going to break down some stuff that's going to blow your mind, and we're going to get into some very interesting conversation. So, Winston, can you tell our audience a little bit about where you're from, your background, and how you got into doing memes?
Sure. I'm from Gulf Breeze, Florida. I was probably lived most of my life like most people, just like sports and watched lots of TV shows, all that good stuff, and was just a normal normie, like we call them. And then back in 2005, 2006, I was playing around on YouTube and watching a bunch of different videos. And I just it was new at the time. There was no commercials, and I was like, this thing's amazing. And I was searching around for stuff, just different things to watch, and I looked up 9/11 videos. And I didn't even know there was such thing as the 9/11 movement, or at that time it was very new, And I was like, what is this? And I clicked on it, and it just changed my life. I realized that what I was told about 9/11 wasn't true. And my family are a bunch of first responders. And so for me, 9/11 hit hard because, my family would have been in those towers, trying to save people. So really from that night on, I swore that I would do everything I could to bring justice to the victims and fight whoever was behind all of it. And that led me down a bunch of different rabbit holes, relearning everything that I thought I knew and learning over and over again that something I had been told was a lie. And eventually, I started speaking out. And of course, I lived in Florida at the time during the Bush administration, so saying that, the Bush administration had something to do with those attacks was obviously not real popular, and I was really by myself a lot as I was doing it, but it kind of forged me in that fire of knowing I was right, knowing that the people would make fun of me, but they couldn't actually win a debate against me about the evidence, And so as I began to fight, I got on social media. At the time it was MySpace. Saw a group of people called We Are Change, and they were protesting at Ground Zero. I ended up flying to Ground Zero in 2006 and meeting those people and protesting with them, and fought a lot of years doing social media and real life activism, handing out DVDs, flyers, things like that, and just talking to people one-on-one, and then also, running pages on MySpace. And then as Facebook developed, going over there. On one of my pages, I had probably 25,000 people, something like that. Not a real big page, but pretty big. And I had posted a link one day, and people were just kind of ignoring it. It was, you had to read it. And of course, people don't really like reading. So I had posted it later in the day and didn't really get a lot of attention. I posted it a third time around dinner time. Still didn't get a lot of attention. And I kept saying, like, this is really important. You got to share it. It's about the wars and stuff like that. And then at the end of the day, I was like, man, nobody really paid attention to it because it was really well sourced and a well documented story. And I noticed that this meme had like 3 times the like or 10 times the likes of all 3 of my posts together. And I was like, oh, you guys just want it to be a meme, huh? So I actually sarcastically, I downloaded the app and I made some memes making fun of memes. Like, I don't like doing actual research. I just want it to be on a picture, but then as soon as I downloaded it, like it kind of changed. Like I immediately was like, this is actually really fun. And it gave me a way to have a voice for the first time and to say things exactly the way I wanted to say them and expose the things that I wanted to expose. I started posting a lot of them. They got real popular on my page, but I didn't realize how far they were going until I was in a group. And they were talking about memes, and I was like, well, I make those things, and I didn't even know what a meme was at the time. I thought it said Mimi. I didn't even know what that was, But I was like, so I posted them in the group, and then people started saying I was lying and I didn't make them. And I was like, what? Why would you say, I didn't know people stole memes at the time. It was new. But I didn't know they'd been going viral. And so they thought I'd just taken a bunch of viral memes and claimed that I made them. I was like, no, we got this big argument. Yeah, we got this big argument for like a couple days. So finally somebody saw me and had seen that argument. They're like, you really did make all those, didn't you? I was like, yeah. And so he ended up getting me for a smaller website. He was like, what if I give you some money to make memes for me? I was like, you're going to pay me? I didn't even believe him. I was like, oh yeah, you're going to pay me money to make memes? Like, okay. This is back in like 2013. And so I was like, all right, but sure enough, one day he's like, check your email. And I had like a $50 gift card to Walmart, which is only $50, but it was still like, wow, like, because I knew I'd found something with those memes, but at the time, people were like, even my own family was like, whatever, and I was like, no, this is something. There's something to these memes, and so that ended up going down a long road of working for different websites and learning about the business of activism, which I don't care much for. And just, yeah, I ended up having my memes get shared all over the world millions of times. I've had my memes translated into other languages, and I was targeted by the Atlantic Council in 2018, along with about 500 other pages. And we were all kicked off Facebook and Instagram at the same time on the same day. We were told we had to send in copies of our driver's license and this is before 2020, where everybody got, like, we were hit in 2018. So that's when I realized, like, oh, I really have, like, hit a nerve with these guys that they put me on this list where they're like, oh, we got to silence this guy. So that's kind of to where I am today, I guess, so far.
That's interesting that you say that your page was targeted, because ours was around a little bit after that, but around that time too, that we started dealing with a lot of blowback, because my aha moment, it wasn't really 9/11. When I seen that, I knew something, like, I kind of felt like, man, something wasn't right, because I was locked up at the time. But my aha moment came in jail. I was dealing with my bank robbery case, and I was talking with some guys from Hawaii, man. I started talking with these guys, and they were doing some sovereign stuff in prison about, in regards to the court procedures and consenting and some other stuff. And they started telling me this stuff, and I'm like, dude, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, what are you talking about? When you go before the judge, how you present yourself, when you get an attorney, you're attorneying your soul, you're turning over your basically your rights, you're an indigent, you're an imbecile. Look at the definitions, man. Start looking in Black's Law. Then they were telling me, like, why do you think, when you go into court, start looking at the different jurisdictions. You got common law, you got admiralty maritime, you got civil law, you got administrative law. And when they started breaking down the laws, I'm like, all the different laws? I was like dumbfounded. Like, man, I got played, I'm like, I started reading, and as I started reading, my head just felt like it was going to explode, man. I'm like, dude, I should have never ran in that damn bank, man. And I'm just reading all this stuff. And I started talking with other guys, learning about different things. And when I had, like, the attorney that represented me, which was a public pretender, when I presented them with some stuff in regards to my case that could knock off time, she actually got mad, like, well, who are you talking to? Like, where'd you get this case from? Because the case said non-published. So for those who don't know, when people win, they actually make a lot of those cases not published so that they can't be cited or shepherdized for people trying to fight their case to get relief. Oftentimes, when people get relief or get action, it's a sealed case. And that's why it's hopeless, because you get in the feds and everybody's like, oh my God, you'll never get out, because you're only accessing their library, which doesn't have any of the stuff that's going to help you. Unless you got somebody on the street or somebody who can get information and they can pull that information. And what they do is they screen your mail. So stuff coming in, they'll flag it in the mailroom and you'll never get it. So it's just a cold game. So when I seen that, I'm like, man, this is crazy, man. And my public pretender, she had me shipped out of where I was at. And I was learning from these guys who were pro se or sui juris. They were their own attorneys. And these guys, people always say only a fool will represent themselves. No, only a fool will let an attorney represent them in court. So these guys were sharp, and I was learning. And so I got shipped out of there. And then once I got to where I was at, I hooked up with this guy. I started going to a law library because I was already at that point like, man, maybe I can get some time off. I was taking accountability for my actions. I knew I did something wrong. I knew I had to pay my dues, but I'm thinking there's some stuff in there that can maybe get me less time. So I started researching and going to a law library, and I found my first mentor, one of my first mentors, this old white guy who's a Vietnam veteran. He was locked up for manufacturing synthetic heroin, and he was making a lot of money, but he also paid for his daughter to go to college, and she went to Chapman University. and his daughter worked for the Federal Reserve. And so his daughter and him had a weird relationship because she was mad at him. And, he's locked up for what he did. And he was fighting and helping a lot of guys. But he seen me going to the law library, and he was like on the very top tier. And I was on the bottom. And he's like, hey, youngster. I looked up. He's like, man, come here, man. And so I went up all the way up the top of the tier. And he's like, what are you doing, man? I said, I'm going to the law library, man. He says, I see you going in there all the time carrying a bunch of books. He's like, what are you studying? I said, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here early, man. He said, I'm not trying to do all this time. I got a decade. And he's like, let me give you some stuff to read, man. And he gave me a bunch of congressional acts. And then he gave me like pages from the United States Attorney's Manual. They got their own manual. It's not public, it's private, but he was able to get access to it. And when I started reading that, I'm like, man, these guys is playing trigonometry, calculus, and you guys are playing basic math. You're not even getting the rule book. So it's like me and you are playing on the chessboard, and you're trying to jump stuff, and I'm doing moves on the chessboard. You don't have a clue. And that's another one of my aha moments. And I'm like, this game it's tilted, man. It's not what people think.
Right. It reminds me of the meme of the system isn't broken, it's built this way. Right?
Yeah. Once you know that, I used to get mad, but then I look at it, man, I just don't have the right playbook. And I realized that this shit is it's been established so long ago. I mean, you can I started reading he put me up on Council on Foreign Relations,
mm-hmm.
the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Society, the Creature of Jekyll Island, the Federal Reserve Act. When I started reading all these things, dude, and see, what's crazy? I had guys wanting to fight me because I was studying. In prison, it's different, man. If you're a nerd or your guys don't like you because you think you're smarter or you think you're better. So it was like a weird group of people I hung out with because I didn't hang out with these guys who were, the gangster thugs, gang members. But one of the things that kept people off me because I was I was in shape and I was a bigger dude. But yeah, dudes were actually mad because I was studying and I was reading this stuff. And going back to your memes, they want to be dumbed down. A lot of these guys, they might have made a lot of money on the streets or whatever, but when it comes to logic, seeing the matrix, sometimes I'm like, how do I see it? Like I heard you say with Cody and Aaron, and I'd be tripping out, and I'm talking to this guy, and in a penitentiary of maybe 3,000 people, only maybe 8 people or 10 people in the yard see this shit. That shit is crazy, man.
But that's just a cross section of society, right? I mean, even though it's prison, it's still the same way in real life. In the regular outside world, it's still a small group of people really see it. Some people kind of see it and they don't really want to see it, so they kind of keep their head down. They're with you, but they're not really with you. They're not really willing to speak out. And then there's some people who are just completely lost and you can't wake them up. So you have to be able to discern which is which and who to waste time on, and who not, you know what I mean? Who's going to listen to what you're saying and who isn't. And you kind of learn that with experience and talking to people. But, part of what a meme is planting a seed. So even if you're having a conversation with somebody and at the moment they're just like fighting you tooth and nail, I can't tell you how many times, and I had one friend in particular who would do this a lot, where we would argue, not really, argue, but just debate things like deeper political stuff. And she was on her way to kind of waking up. But then over and over, we would talk about something, and then 6 months later, she would be on my side and say something that I said to her and not even realize that I had said it to her. I'd be like, I told you that. But I mean, at the time, she's fighting me, but the seeds that I'm planting, they have a way of taking root. And when you lay down to sleep that night, you're going, oh, that kind of did make sense. He did have a good point there. And I didn't have a comeback, so I just called him tinfoil hat. But when they lay down, they're like, oh, well. And like you said, you don't really know the monetary system if you're growing up in this country. You're just like $1's a dollar, whatever. It's got weird shit on the back. You don't understand Masons and occult symbolism and a Federal Reserve note versus a dollar backed by gold, or, you're not taught those things in school. So, if you're intentionally dumbed down by the people who are running everything, then, and you're the person standing up going, hey, stop being dumb. Yeah, a lot of people aren't going to like that, but you're not really looking for those people anyway, because what you're looking for are the leaders who are going to stand up and go, no, he's right. This is bullshit. And when those people stand up, they inspire more people. And then those people who are hating on you anyway, they're a bunch of followers. So when the tide swings, they're going to jump on your side anyway and act like they were there all along.
You know, I realize you kind of create your own circle, and that circle forms on its own. It's like there's a level of consciousness that's out there, and it's a vibration. I used to be able to walk in the penitentiary, and I could feel energy. Like I could feel some dudes in there that were demons, bro. Like dark energy, straight killers. These dudes, you knew not to even engage or have any type of interaction. And then there were other guys you had to be careful because they were what I call shapeshifter. They come like they're cool, but they're after something. And it's like the same thing on the street. So metaphorically, I use a lot of the same things. And sometimes, like my wife's like, oh, you know, the penalty you're talking about that. I said, I'm not institutional. I'm just showing you prison is the micro of the macro. Soon as they started doing that lockdown shit, I seen it. In prison, they do the same shit, man. They set up a situation, right? A prison would be operating, you know, how the prison what regularly operates. And then they want to create some type of situation in there so they can justify the goon squad, overtime, all the you know, security measure, whatever they want to do. So they create a riot. They bring in a certain shot caller, bring in this guy. They know when he hits the yard that it's going to cause effect. It might take a week, 2 weeks to a month, but it's going to happen. You bring in enough of his friends, it kicks off. It's the same shit they were doing when they were setting up this goddamn Antifa riots, setting up shit, putting shit on the news, propaganda. Oh my God, fear mongering. I'm like, man, this is like right out of a goddamn prison playbook, man, or you know, one of these communist manifestos. When you read that stuff, it's the same shit. And people, like you said, with their head down, and most people don't have time to even. This is beyond, you know, anything they need to even recognize because they got kids, credit cards, car payment, house payment, rent. They don't want to think about things that could be happening beyond that. And so, you know, I used to just, you know, kick back with my wife and kind of like do my thing during that whole lockdown. And it was so eye-awakening, man, like how easy it was to get these people to do this stuff. And when you start looking at like, you're offering me marijuana and McDonald's to get this thing? Really? Come on, man. And then you got a guy who gets paraded through the streets in a gold casket. Is that Pharaoh?
Yeah, 2020 was definitely one of those moments where, I mean, you know, we had been in the movement, we had been talking for a long time about what the next 9/11 was going to be, right? There was a lot of guesses. And I've only seen one video of a guy who was on record saying, I think they'll fake a pandemic. Everybody else was like mini nukes or, you know, they'll actually release something. But, you know, for me, the thing about 2020 was there was never a point in time where the media said that any major deaths were actually occurring. The whole time, the actual story was always from the CDC, the Department of Health, everybody was that it was over 99%, you'd be fine. Like they put cases up all the time because the people didn't know how cases were figured out. But the actual like virus itself, like if you were really paying attention, it was nothing. But yet people were scared to death and hiding in their house. And it was like, you know, if I told people I've always said, if I told people you got a 99% chance of winning the lottery, you'd be going out to get a ticket, you know, but like, so you know what 99% means, right? These are regular people who understand what odds mean. But in this instance, they're still scared to death. So it was like that repetitive fear-based mind control truly worked. And it was one of those where I spent months contemplating like, why can I see this so easily? And so many people are scared and terrified. And, you know, I guess there's just some people are given discernment. Some of us are here to help await some other people. And then some people, as you say, are just damn demons. Like there's some evil people that we're fighting. I believe this is a spiritual war. Like I was woken up spiritually before I started my political journey. And as soon as I started my political journey, I'm like, whoever those evil people are blew those buildings up so we would give into this police state and give them a blank check for never ending war. That's evil stuff. Like that's deeply evil. So I didn't at the time, I didn't know who they all were, but I knew they were. And that's the big trick that they play on society, is they make you think that this is all random acts of violence and just greed and corruption. And the truth is, it's a plan. And when you figure out that there really is a plan and there really are people pushing this plan, and you understand the plan, then it's easy to decode the news. It's easy to see why they're pushing this story and not this one. Like, it all becomes so obvious that it's embarrassing. So when COVID happened, and I've been talking about this stuff for years, for me, it was really interesting because, like with my mom, she's a nurse. And I had been talking about this for so long that when, I had talked about digital currency before Bitcoin ever existed. So when this first started happening, I approached her honestly and was like, I don't know, because they were shutting down ports and doing all this stuff. And I knew I'd been battling with the CDC for years. I'd made fun of Zika and H1N1 and every flavor of the month virus they tried to scare you with. And I was like, Mom, I just wanted to make sure, and she's like, well, yeah, I think it's okay so far. And then as I was digging, I would show her stuff. I'd be like, why are they telling everybody to wear surgical masks? Because she knew as well as I did, because I've had numerous experience with different types of masks, that those are not for stopping. That'd be like wearing that into it. You ever painted a car? Go into a paint booth wearing that. You're going to pass out. Like, it's just not for that. And she knew that. And she knew all that stuff. And like, it was the first time, because I've been talking about vaccines since before my daughter was born, because I wouldn't get my daughter vaccinated. And I had a long debate with her about it. She could never win any debate about it. And then when this new vaccine was coming, she was like, yeah, I'm kind of scared of this. It was the first time that she had understood what I was saying and understood like why I had been fighting and saw these things coming true. And then when she spoke out just about on her Facebook page about, people should kind of calm down, because she'd run an entire ER and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, she's used to flu season, and she got pushback. And then I think when she realized she was going to lose her job and stuff like that, all of a sudden she kind of went into her shell again and started treating me like I was nuts again. And it was one of those defining moments where it was like, because all that time I had believed that when she saw it, she would do the right thing. And yet when she saw it and it was time to do the right thing, she was like, I'm not losing my pension. I'm not going to have my marriage get screwed up over this. Like, I'm just going to, even though she knew I was right, she hasn't talked to me since 2020, because she, one of the things, I had made a meme about how the common cold was vanishing on April 5th of 2020. That's 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I'm going, look, the common cold, they're telling you the common cold vanished. She can't explain how I did that. Before any major news organization said it, before any doctor said it, I was going, hey, look at the stats. And I posted graphs and nobody believed me. And then later it was like, oh, actually, the flu vanished during 2020. That's a true power network that can tell people the common cold vanished. And reporters everywhere will just go, yep, okay. And that shows you the true power of those people. And that's why, like, I always say that as an example, as just not to take a long way around it, and how it gets into Trump, where people were like, oh, he's some threat to the system. And it's like, well, then I don't think you understand the system, because I don't understand how you think they could pull off 9/11. And these are people who are aware of these things. Or that they pulled off something like the coronavirus and they scammed everybody into believing the common cold disappeared. But somehow this maverick rose up against all these secret societies within the media complex that gave him billions of dollars of free advertising, and he's just a threat. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I understand wanting to cling to that hero and wanting to believe that there's some threat, that you're not just being run by satanic pedophiles. But unfortunately, that is who you're being run by, and that's an uncomfortable truth that people are starting to realize. I'm sorry to go a really long way around for an answer.